This is Catherine Schneider from the Fitchburg Historical Society. Today we are in front of Blackhawk Church in Fitchburg along Seminole Highway, and we are so pleased to be at this location because it has an historical context. So we're going to be talking about Blackhawk Church and find out more about the church itself, but also we're going to do the background of what was here before and the surprise of that location, and telling you about that too, the story behind that. Well, the farm on which Blackhawk Church on Seminole Highway in Fitchburg is situated was purchased in 1921 by my mother's parents, John and Catherine Dunn. Already on the farm was a pre-Civil War stone barn built by previous owners Martin and Janet McKenna, who bought the property in 1856. The farmhouse was built in the 1880s from payment by the Illinois Central Railroad for bringing the railroad line through the farm property. That railroad line later became the Badger Bike Trail that runs north and south through central Fitchburg. A windmill was also present on the farm until the building of Blackhawk Church, when the stone barn, the farmhouse, the windmill, and the other farm structures were removed. My grandparents, John and Catherine Dunn, raised their 6 children, Vincent, William, Gerald, Mary, Irene, and Vernon, on this farm. The children often walked the railroad tracks to their one-room country school, Camp Badger, on McKee Road. 3 of the sons, Vincent, Gerald, and Vernon, would continue another generation of farming, sharing equipment and labor among their several area farms. My other grandparents, Emmett and Cassie O'Brien, were neighbors on Seminole Highway south of Lacey Road, where O'Brien Solar Fields are today. My O'Brien grandparents owned 60 acres of land just east of Blackhawk Church. When my parents, Leo and Mary, were dating, they would meet across the line fence that separated the Dunn and the O'Brien family properties. That is the reason the street behind Blackhawk is named Leo Mary Street, in memory of my mother and father's meeting place. And I just wanted to mention that my grandmother Dunn, from her farmhouse, would enjoy just sitting out on the porch at night and just enjoying the sunset facing the west. So she always enjoyed that so much, the country, being out in the country and watching the sunset. Well, and then Gerald Dunn, my uncle, took over the farm from his parents and spent the rest of his years thriving on his vocation of farming. Whether it was milking cows, raising pigs, or planting corn, Gerald did it with dedication, hard work, and attention to detail and quality. Gerald died in 2012, having lived on his family farm for over 90 years. And here we are in front of Blackhawk Church, and we're ready to go in to interview Pastor Daniel Owen. We're so happy to be here with Pastor Daniel Owen from Blackhawk Church, Fitchburg site. So we're so happy you have us here on site at Blackhawk. Yeah. And the first question I'd like to ask you, Pastor Owen, is would you like to share anything about your own background and maybe a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Catherine, first off, thanks for inviting me to have this conversation, talk about the wonderful history of this land and site, and also a little bit about what our community church is all about. So, yeah, you know, I have a great sort of history, but I've kind of plopped over. I was born in Tennessee, and then I moved to Boulder, and I spent some time in Pennsylvania. So I've been in some different places along the country, but man, Wisconsin's a great state to live in. My wife's from Green Bay, so I've got some, some real, I've got Packer fans for sure in the family, and so we're really glad to be here. And I've been with Blackhawk now 10 years. So
10 years.
10 years.
So since 2015 then, 2015. Is that correct?
That's right.
10 years. So can you fill us in on kind of the background of the church here? What drew you to this particular site here in Fitchburg? Why here?
Sure. No, that's great. Blackhawk has been a church in the Madison area for a long time, I think since the early 1960s. And then one of the things that they had always known is that they were just kind of growing. They had a site out at Blackhawk Avenue at first, which is where we got the name Blackhawk from. And then they moved to a building on Whitney Way. And then that, space was just not large enough. So many people were coming and they couldn't fit them all in. So they ended up building a campus out in Middleton, off of Mineral Point Road out there. And so when they built that place, they just continued to draw more and more people. But, as a church, we don't want to become just this thing that draws people away from their homes or their communities, right? Like, we love all different parts of Madison, and we want to really care for communities well. And so we saw a number of people coming from South Madison, this kind of Fitchburg area, that were coming up to the Middleton campus. And back in 2013, they decided to launch a site here. And so you might be thinking, 2013, yeah, that was a while ago, right? So we were meeting in a school. We actually met in Savannah Oaks Middle School. And it was a great spot. We did what's called set up and tear down. For those of you who've never understood that, we meet in a gym, and there's basically 2 trailers that a team of volunteers and people bring in, then boxes roll out, and they set up a whole kind of auditorium, sanctuary things, and set up kids' rooms and all sorts of stuff. So we were doing that for a long time. And so I think what drew me to this church is their values for, not only loving God, but very much loving the community and the people around them. So it was exciting to become a part of that.
Great. And this land happened to be coming available about the time you were looking for a church site then also, maybe the dovetailing of both of those things.
Yeah, a little bit. I'd come in 2015, and like I said, we opened in 2013 at Savannah Oaks. So, there were a number of years. We looked at different things, what could be the right fit, because it was a lot of work to set up and tear down, every Sunday for years. And we had great people who understood the mission and the value of being here, who were willing to do it, but it is a lot. And but in 2019, we always felt like we wanted a spot that was right here in Fitchburg, because this is the community we've kind of built a home in, and we didn't want to go anywhere else. And then this land became available. The Dunn family was selling this land, and it just, I don't know, it was just a beautiful connection and relationship that made it possible.
Good, great. And so the time steps for coming to build the church, and then the time frame. So starting out here in 2013, and then actually moving into the church then was in 2019.
At the end of 2019, December of 2019.
Which takes us right into COVID time. So you had that happening soon after you opened this building, didn't you?
Oh yeah. So in December of 2019, I remember us having our first Christmas Eve service in the building. During one of our services, we had people sitting out of the atrium. We didn't have enough seats for the amount of people coming, which was, very positive and exciting. And then we kind of came into that next year experiencing a lot of growth and excitement. And then, of course, COVID happened. And, we are a part of Dane County, so we tried to follow everything that Dane County was, advising us to do. And so because of that, we really didn't get to reopen our doors for almost a little over a year. So that was a big challenge for a lot of people, but certainly for us incled in that.
And you lived through it, and here you are.
Yeah, we
alive and growing well.
Yeah, we definitely lived through that. And, there were people that moved and did all sorts of things. And then there's people during that season who really did reset and relook at oh man, I think faith is something I want to explore. And then after we opened our doors, we saw a lot of new people coming that weren't here, in the original sort of group that came over.
Well, I'd like to know, we're sitting here in the auditorium,
right,
and also I know you use for worship space, lots of things. Could you explain and describe maybe why you chose the layout that you do, what the layout is here of the church proper, and then why the way it's laid out the way it is?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that when we came together, when we were thinking about building a space, we wanted to build a space where the community could come and feel like this is a place that they could be. one, it's inviting, it's warm. That's where you're going to see a lot of wood and things like that too, that kind of warmth that's there. But it's also going to be a space that's easy to navigate, and it's going to have a lot of light. Like if you come into the atrium space, we have windows like along the ceiling, so there's just a lot of sunlight and things that come in. I mean, honestly, we had they envisioned the idea of a community center, basically, a center where the community can come and be. And so we've really used architecture and different things throughout the building that allow people from the community to come in and feel good about being here. Half of the building is actually dedicated to children's space. We have a large, vibrant children's ministry, and you will experience that on a Sunday if you come in for sure. And we love that, and I've always wanted to, be a part of a church where children feel like this is very much home for them. And so, they feel like they can be here. And we're not worried if coffee gets spilt or something happens. Church is supposed to be a place that's lived in. It's supposed to be kind of like a home. And so that's how we really tried to build this space. And we tried to make it with the community mind, in the sense that I think we've had different community meetings here since we've opened doors, different neighborhood meetings since being here. I think Oak Bank is hosting a meeting here. Even Leopold Elementary School. They're able to use the auditorium space you see right here for their musical. They're using that each spring. Because in their current facility, they don't really have an optimal space for that. And we said, hey, you can use this space. We'll open the doors and feel free to come in and be here.
So like a community center, a home, a place to feel very welcomed. All of those things are provided here at Blackhawk.
Those were their real priorities, because of course this can be a place of worship, but it can be so much more than that.
And I know you've already talked some about this, but maybe if you could summarize the values that you have here as a church community.
Yeah. I mean, we are a church that's sort of our hope and our desire is to build a loving community that's following Jesus, but with the purpose of reaching other people. And we've often, I've always thought about this, like I think so many of the people in our country and throughout the world, but especially here in Madison, they're exploring their faith. They're exploring what does it mean to believe in God, or what do I even think about that? And we long to be the kind of place that someone can come in and take that next step, whatever that might look like. Whether they have doubts, whether they have questions, welcome to Blackhawk. We want you here. And so that's the kind of culture we have, that's the kind of space that we have, and that's the kind of church we're trying to build, is a place that anyone can take their next step in faith and what that looks like.
Beautiful. And so would you describe a little bit maybe I know that this space is used in so many ways, but maybe your worship services in particular, the programming you have, and community involvement, outreach, maybe some of those things to touch on?
Yeah, sure. So sort of the Sunday things, right? We can go, we have 2 services at 9 o'clock, 10:45, and then we have kids programming from basically nursery all the way to 6th grade offered at both of those services. And then sometimes, when kids aren't loving the room they're in, we actually have this beautiful family room that families just gather and kind of do church that way a little bit. So that's kind of our Sunday specific things. But then throughout the week, it's used for all sorts of stuff. I mean, we have different Bible studies, we have different things happening all throughout, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and what that looks like. And as far as outreach and community stuff, I mean, we have 2 community partners, what we call them. One of those is Leopold Elementary School, so we do backpack school supply drives. Sometimes we do snack drives and different things, whatever the school might need. And then we're also closely in relationship with Badger Prairie Needs Network, which is a wonderful organization that really cares about people, food insecurity. And so each week we have donation bins up to the front of our church, and each week our people bring food and donate food throughout the week. And then we have volunteers who take the food to Badger Prairie, and then we do different things with them throughout the year as well. So those are some of the community partners, in a sense, that we have sort of outreach-wise. But yeah, programming-wise, man, there's a whole host of things. So if you want to get involved with Blackhawk, you just go to blackhawk.org, and you'll be able to get online easy.
All right, thank you. And if you had a curious resident from Fitchburg who came up to you and said, Pastor Owen, tell me about your church. Like, how would you just describe it to someone who just didn't know anything about it? Maybe passed the church here on Seminole Highway, saw the building and said, looks interesting. Wonder what that's all about.
Yeah, I think we're a church that cares about people, and we care about the community we're in, and I think we care about loving people well where they are, and then helping them where they want to go. I mean, yeah, we certainly believe in God. We believe in the power of God to really change our lives. There's no doubt. But we also understand that people are coming at who God is from very different places, And we don't expect anyone to look a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain way in order to be here. Because we don't feel that's the way that God treats us. God loves us for who we are. And so we want to love people for who they are and emulate that and represent that well. And so I think if you were to come to Blackhawk, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find a community, that loves God and talks about the Bible, for sure. But we're also going to find a community that's looking to love you right where you're at and help you take whatever that next step is that you want to take.
Sounds like it's focused on the people who come through the door.
That's right.
Well, finally, I'm wondering if you could reflect maybe on your years as pastor, over 10 years now.
Yeah, 10 years.
Here in particular, and maybe what stands out to you as special moments that you really cherish, that are important to you.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think of the years when we were in Savannah Oaks. I think, even for me when I was growing up, church very, very much felt like a building. It was like, oh, this is a building, now you're a church kind of thing. But man, when I was a part of the community here, when we were meeting at Savannah Oaks, we didn't have a building, but we did have a church. Because we had a group of people that loved one another, that loved this community, and cared for one another. And they emulated what a church is really about. It's not about a building. It's about a group of people who love one another well and love the community they're in. And so for years before we had this building, we opened in 2013 in the school. We didn't even get in here till 2019. So over 6 years, I don't know. I felt like the people of this community taught me a lot about what it means to be a church in a sense. And I, many of them are my friends, and we, talk about the days of old when we didn't have chairs and we didn't have walls, things like that. And but we had each other, and we had something really meaningful there, and so that was, for a season, that was a really beautiful thing, and that was really cool. And then we moved here, and I think it's one of the things that we've tried to keep talking about. We may have a physical building now, but our church has never been about having a building, because that's not what a church is. A church isn't a building; it's the people that make the church. And so actually each year, I think March 3rd is what we call our anniversary. So we don't celebrate the anniversary or when the building opened. That's great. That was exciting. I'm not acting like it wasn't. But we mark the moment for when our community, in a sense, decided to pull together and come to Fitchburg, the community of Fitchburg, and plant a church themselves. And so each year we celebrate that. And so, we've celebrated, 12 years now, if I did the math right, so 12 years, and so we tell the story again, and we share the vision again, because it's important for us to remember that's what a church is about. It's not about having a great space, because we may not always have a great space, but we'll still be that church here at Fitchburg. So
that summarizes so beautifully what your community is about focusing on the people, and that is where the church is. Not the building, even though this is a beautiful space and you've made it a lovely place for not only the people who belong to Blackhawk, but the whole community. But that the church is the people and caring for one another, as you've described it so well. So, Pastor Owen, thank you so much for your time, and then for letting us come to see your space here, but then to hear about the deep values that you hold here in this community of Fitchburg. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Thanks so much.